He was mediocre at best. So I will never let him catch a game winner on me. This is a joke, right? Like I said before the game, if our team knew they were going to try me on a fade for the game, we'd be wearing our hats early.
Sherman made a good play. I mean, that's probably the only play he made the whole game. I mean, if you cut up the film and look at it, guys are beat. I mean, we're doing our job. I mean, whatever it takes. We just came short at the end.
A little bit of an exchange between you and Sherman after the play. I mean,
yeah, I ain't getting into that. He know what time it is. When we're on the field, he ain't doing nothing. That's one play. You know what I'm saying? He know.
He knows. Not only did Sherman say that, but what he's referring to is after the play, he ran up to Crabtree, gave him a pat on his butt, then looked as if he wanted to shake his hand. Crabtree gave him a bit of a shove, as you can see right there. And then Sherman does the choke signal, or symbol, however you want to look at it. So we asked this question. Did Richard Sherman go too far? Skip Bayless, it's for you.
Stephen A. Smith, yes, Richard Sherman did go too far. Richard Sherman, to me, had just made the play of the year in the National Football League. The game-saving pass breakup that obviously led to the game-ending interception. To me, that was the signature play that cinched Richard Sherman's status as the best cornerback in the National Football League. And yet, instead of letting that play speak for itself or yell for itself, Richard Sherman obviously immediately shifted the focus by, as Kerry said, taunting Michael Crabtree, continuing his beef with Michael Crabtree. Then, given the choke sign, he said it was aimed at Colin Kaepernick. And then continuing to rip Michael Crabtree in his post-game press conferences and on Twitter. That should all be beneath Richard Sherman's dignity at this point. He should start letting his game speak for itself. My point all along on Richard is I have admired the fact that as a former fifth-round draft choice, he's played with the chip on his shoulder. He's sensationally talented. Obviously, he's fast, and he's long, and he's nasty. But he needed to motivate himself against all odds by picking fights, by taunting Tom Brady, Darrelle Revis on Twitter. Obviously, he provoked Trent Williams to take a swing at him after a game against the Washington Redskins. That was all well and good as he rose up the ladder. But he's at the top right now. And I wish yesterday, in his signature moment, he had just stood back, played it classy, and let that play scream for itself. Because that's all anyone should have been talking about. And unfortunately, we're talking about all the extracurricular now.
Skip Bayless is a very tricky situation. Let me preface my comments by saying this. I think what Richard Sherman did was wrong, and I think that it was definitely less than classy because you don't need to be doing the choke sign towards Colin Kaepernick. You don't need to be in Michael Crabtree's face like that. You don't need to be talking about it and personalizing things on that level in front of a nationally televised audience the way that he did in the post game. Just like he didn't need to trash talk to Tom Brady. Just like he didn't need to accuse Jim Harbaugh of bullying. Just like he didn't need to encourage Pete Carroll at one time to run up the score on the San Francisco 49ers. There's a plethora of instances where there are things that Richard Sherman has done that he didn't necessarily need to be doing. Because all of this stuff that he was talking about, Michael Crabtree and what he said, I never heard that stuff from Crabtree. Now, if Crabtree did it, it was in the off season like Richard Sherman alluded to. It was face-to-face, or it was some of the things that you heard within that NFL bubble. But it wasn't something that transpired on national television. So, again, it's not one of those things that you need to see. But at the same time, I think people use that as a means to really denigrate Richard Sherman. And maybe it's because we have failed to acknowledge that this guy has established himself as, in all probability, is the best cornerback in the game of football. And if this guy had not been the way that he has been, maybe it's incumbent upon us to ask ourselves, would we be giving him the props that he deserves? Maybe the acerbic mentality, the fact that he just seems just flat out mean sometimes, comes from the fact that he believes people have been mean to him, that people have done everything they could to not give him the props that he's earned and has worked for. We've got to accept some culpability in all of this. The fact of the matter is that Richard Sherman doesn't cheat the game of football. It's similar to what I say about Money Mayweather, Floyd Mayweather Jr. Talks all the talk in the world. Sometimes it makes you a bit uncomfortable. But I've seen Floyd Mayweather work out. I've seen the level of dedication he gives to his craft. And maybe that's what Richard Sherman has been doing. I mean, you've got Darrelle Revis, you've got Patrick Patterson, you've got all of these guys in the league, and somehow, some way, this dude that was a relative unknown at Stanford, all right, Stanford University, comes into the NFL. He's 25 years of age. It's his third year in the league. He's doing his thing week in and week out, even though Roddy White and Julian Jones had a decent game against Seattle last year in the playoffs. Bottom line is, if you put in all that work and people are not willing to give you the props that you deserve, sometimes you might react in a fashion that, dare I say, is less than classy. So let's keep in mind and remember that even though we're uncomfortable with some of the things that he's doing and some of the ways that he's acting, he is 25 years of age. He ain't getting in trouble off the field. He's going out on the field. He's performing at an elite level. He's established himself as arguably the best cornerback in the game. He's a highly intelligent young man, comes from Compton all the way to the NFL, doing what he's doing. I got to give him props for that. I can't sit there and look at him and say, well, you know what? He's a bad guy. I wish that he filter some of the things that he says, reel it in, you know, because I think that there's a lot more positive than negative about this guy. And I think we play a role in it in terms of not giving him the prop that he deserves until recently. In the end, we want him to chill. But I think it's important for us to leave it at that because the pros with this guy far outweighs the cons. I'm a fan.